Jefferson County citizens can, Jefferson County citizens can vote at the courthouse in Charlestown from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And of course, our primary election day is Tuesday, June the 9th. Our polls open at 6:30 a.m. and close at 7:30 p.m. Please exercise your right to vote. All right? Ms. Ringo, and if our candidates would agree to this program being recorded, we will proceed. Thank you. Ms. Ringo?
Okay, we will begin with Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you.
Are you going to start with the role and responsibilities?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Man, for some reason, I'm nervous tonight. You're right. It's the opening statements first.
Yeah.
I stand corrected, you all.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm thinking more.
Proceed, Ms. Kerrigan. Go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you. My name is Regina Kerrigan. I am a mom of 3. I have a 3-year-old boy and 8-year-old twin girls who attend South Jefferson Elementary School. I grew up in Charlestown and I attended every grade, K through 12, here in Jefferson County Public Schools. The past year and a half, I have been a stay-at-home mom, and prior to that, I owned Billy's Cafe in Ranson for 5 years. Before moving back to Jefferson County, I did live in different areas. When my girls were born, we decided it was time to come home and raise our family here. So I was first inspired to run for the board when I heard about the shift toward heavy industry, but then I decided that I was compelled to run when I considered the education issues that matter to me. Being a parent who went to the school system here and who is now sending her children to the county schools here, I have a vested interest in the success of the state of our schools. I've done a little bit of observation of classrooms, and in the past year, I started getting involved with the Past Volunteer program at South Jefferson Elementary School. I did participate many years ago in the Energy Express program put on by AmeriCorps in Ranson Elementary School. So I felt that the timing of the Board of Ed election was really good for me. I have been considering how I want to get involved again in the community after a year and a half at home with my kids. And I felt that this was a really great way that I can contribute to the community, give back, and show my caring and put my skills to work for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Joy, please.
Okay. Hello, and thank you for hosting this forum. My vision for our school system is that I want to bring our schools up to the level of those of the surrounding counties and ultimately reach the top 10% in the country. All students will receive equal and equitable educations and be prepared for independent life and be contributing members of society, expand their VOTEC training, or be prepared for college upon graduation. The board will serve as a transparent, accessible, and accountable servant of the community where all citizens receive equal representation. I am uniquely qualified to serve on the school board because of my compassion for my community and my passion to serve. I have the most diverse background as I grew up in West Baltimore, where I attended some of the roughest schools in the country, and I began my teaching career there 33 years ago. Later, I taught in Arlington, Virginia, where over 146 different languages were spoken in the school where I taught. I've taught in Jefferson County for 8 years and have been a coach and sports official in Jefferson County. My children went through the Jefferson County school system, so I know firsthand many of the current issues facing our schools. Additionally, I'm certified in all core subjects, including special education, and have taught all ages and grade levels, so I understand the needs of each level and curriculums. My PhD in Educational Measurement Statistics Research and Evaluation affords me the skills needed to analyze and apply solid logic and make research-based policy decisions. I have a master's degree in special ed with a minor in neuroscience and taught special ed for 15 years. This will allow me to help our school system become compliant with federal special ed laws. I've taught online for 19 years and wrote a book about online education. My experience is needed to bring our current online instruction program up to the most efficient level possible. My previous work experience as a bookkeeper and 33 years teaching math assures that I can analyze budgets. I also worked as a property manager, so I am comfortable working with lots of different people, personalities, and needs related to building repairs and maintenance. With my master's degree in psychology and experience in trauma-informed strategies, I worked as a mental health counselor in Jefferson County. I also serve as a volunteer recovery coach in the hospitals and Judge Hammer's drug court. This gives me the ability to assist in the development and expansion of an effective social emotional program. I supervise student teachers, so I understand the needs of new teachers. I also supervise principals' dissertations, which keeps me abreast of the latest research in administration and supervision, but also gives me experience needed to work with numerous board members from various walks of life. I've worked with our local legislators in creating and advocating for special education and education-related bills to help our students. Finally, I've spent hundreds of hours working with the local and state school boards, the union, Civil Rights Commission, Employee Grievance Board, NAACP, addressing all forms of code violations and personnel, student, and building concerns as a volunteer advocate for the citizens of Jefferson County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Ms. Lochner.
All right, thank you. My name is Wayne Lochner, and I'm a long time out here, and I was 3 years old, and I've spent over 50 years in Jefferson County. I feel that I'm uniquely qualified to serve in this office, one, because the board entrusted me by putting me in the interim position, which I've been doing for the last 7 months. And it's been a wonderful learning experience, even though I have a profound background in education. Being on the board has certainly enlightened me to all the different needs that we have, but a different side of education. But prior to that, my background is in teaching. I taught in Jefferson County schools as an elementary teacher and as a special education teacher. I taught at North Jefferson Elementary and Charlestown Middle School, and having worked to help support and turn around the schools, North Jefferson actually was a blue ribbon school when I was a teacher there, as an intervention coordinator for the state. And then for the last 9 years, I was working as a West Virginia Department of Education school improvement coordinator. And that was working with Title I schools and implementing the turnaround principle. So I was assigned to schools that were in the lowest 5% in West Virginia. And I'm happy to say that all the schools I was assigned to turn around in 3 years all made it out of the bottom 5%, and some are actually now in the top 10% in the state. I have 2 children that one has graduated from Jefferson County schools and one is still in Jefferson County schools. So I certainly recognize what's happening in the schools all the time. Currently, I'm vice president of 2 Teach an Inclusive Education consulting company based out of Los Angeles, California. We work with schools all across the United States implementing inclusive practices. I'm a researcher and an author and have books on education administration. My education is, I have a master's degree in special education and my doctorate is in education leadership. When I'm not busy doing all of these things, I am a coach in the community, and I've coached a lot of kids in the community in basketball, soccer, and tennis. My vision, though, for this office that I'm seeking is I truly want to be a catalyst of transparency, a conduit for communication that reveals the needs of the community that we serve so that every child has the right to receive an education and experience that gives them the tools that open the doors for today and tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow looks like, and this pandemic has certainly brought that to light. So we have to give them not just education skills, but complete problem solving and soft skills. Our school system has to foster the development of all students, allow them to recognize their worth in our community, because someday what we want them to do is doing what we're doing today. And that's, you know, to come back and serve and support our community and give back. Thank you.
Mr. Osborne.
Yes, I'm Mark Osborne, a lifelong resident of Jefferson County. I'm a product of the Jefferson County school system, and I feel that I received an excellent education that prepared me for my undergraduate degrees at Shepherd College. I graduated from Shepherd College with degrees in elementary education, mathematics, and social studies. Then I went on to further my master's degree in educational administration from West Virginia University. I taught 3rd and 4th grade for 15 years. I then became principal at C.W. Shipley Elementary School for 23 years. I retired from that position in 2012. At that time, I was elected to the Jefferson County Board of Education, and I've served 8 years in that position. I have been elected as Vice President of the Jefferson County Board of Education for 4 of those years. While at Shipley, I was selected Jefferson County Principal of the Year in 2006, and C.W. Shipley was recognized as a West Virginia School of Excellence in 2003-2004 under my leadership. I presently serve on the Regional Education Service, the RESA 8, which is now EPIC board, and I have served on it president of that board the past 2 years. EPIC is an educational cooperative that serves the 8 easternmost counties of West Virginia. I feel that my background qualifies me to be a leader on the Jefferson County Board of Education. I want to enhance our school system and make it a top-notch system that other systems look to for cutting-edge methods of instruction. I want our students to be well prepared for higher education opportunities, and I also want our students to be job ready for jobs that are available in our region and county. We also need to serve our VOTEC training, be sure our VOTEC training is readily available and parallels the needs of the job market that's available locally in our county and region. Thank you.
Ms. Godlove. Ms. Godlove.
Hi, thank you. Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself. My name is Amanda Godlove, and I moved here to Jefferson County about 9.5 years ago. My husband grew up here. We chose to move back when we purchased a home when I was expecting our first child, choosing to Jefferson County as where we wanted to raise our family. The big thing that I have found since moving here is the community and the people. That's one of the biggest draws for me. When we were researching places to kind of relocate to, one of the things that stood out from Jefferson County from the rest of West Virginia was the quality of the schools in Jefferson County. There is absolutely room for improvement, but there are some things that we do well today. And so I would love to be a part of being able to kind of continue that growth and improvement so that we are top in the state. When I look at what I'm trying to accomplish, I look at, success for every child. And what that success looks like may not be the same for every child. For someone, it may be a 4-year college. Maybe it's a 2-year college, or a VOTEC school, or an art school, or military service. I think all too often we tend to kind of pigeonhole students into an idea of what our vision and idea of success is for them. And I think it's important that we work with our educators to work with each individual child, assess their strengths and what areas that they have the best chance of succeeding, and listening to them. What makes me uniquely qualified, I've listened to some of the credentials and things of some of my people that are running against me, and it can be kind of daunting. I do have a BFA, but I think what makes me most uniquely qualified is that I would represent kind of the citizens and the moms and the people, the average person of this county. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but I do. You know, I have worked in corporate America. I currently am a small business owner, kind of struggling through learning how to pivot due to COVID. I have worked in corporate America, managing large groups of people, teams over multiple states, budgets upwards of 18 million. Part of my roles in my last two positions outside of my personal business was to come in, assess the regions and the divisions, find out where there was opportunities for improvement, identify concerns within the financials and the budgets, and kind of determine out where the money's going and is it being used effectively. And I think that those talents would be unique in this county. As far as a vision, I want us to have great schools. I want every child that walks in the doors of those schools to feel welcome, to feel like this is their place. This is where they get to go to learn, to grow, to be with their friends. And I think that as educators and as citizens, it's our responsibility to give them that place. Thank you.
Ms. Fuller.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Barbara Fuller. We moved here in 2007 when my husband retired from the Air Force. So I'm the Air Force wife. We have 4 children, 3 of which were educated or are still being educated in Jefferson County schools. I have one who graduated last year, one who's due to graduate next year. He attends school out of state. And I have my daughter who is a sophomore going into her junior year in Jefferson High. A little bit more about me. I'm a search angel. I help adopted people find their biological parents. I own my own business. I do equipment lease financing. So I work with numbers and read financials daily. I also do photography, and I've done it for Shepherdstown Middle School. I do it for my son's school in Maryland. And anywhere I can shoot a picture, I certainly do. What makes me uniquely qualified is that I am, as Amanda said, I am that parent, which I do find that we need more parents on our school board. It's great to have teachers and educators on the board, but it's nice to have that extra input from parents because we are there with our children. One of the reasons I wanted to be on the Board of Education, there's actually 3. The first is one of my children had an IEP, and it was absolutely horrid to navigate that whole IEP system. And I would love to see more help for parents to understand exactly what their child gets, all the things that are out there for them, every avenue that can be pursued. It's tough as a parent to have papers put in front of you saying that your child needs help and this is what they need, but when you ask why, you're not given an exact answer. The other reasons were that our schools need their infrastructure replaced, repaired, all of the above. And I had a real hard time accepting the fact that we were going to use Board of Education funds to fund a lawsuit. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm fiscally conservative, and I can't understand how we could use funds that belongs to educating our children. The other question that you had was some of the things.
Time has run out.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fuller. Sister Ringo.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Before I get started with the questions, I will read the roles and responsibilities of the Board of Education. The most important responsibility of school boards is to work with their communities to improve student achievements in their local public schools. School boards derive the power and authority from the West Virginia State Code. In compliance with the state and federal laws, school boards establish policies and regulations by which their local schools are governed. Determine school district's mission and purpose. Establish policies to accomplish the district's stated mission and ensure that policies are being followed. Select the superintendent. Support the superintendent and assess performance. Ensure effective organizational planning. Ensure adequate resources, financial, facilities, human, time. Assure effective management of resources. Determine, monitor, and strengthen the district's programs and services. Enhance the school district's public standing. And last but not least, ensure legal and ethical integrity, maintaining accountability. All right, we will begin our questions.
And Sister Ringo, we want to remind those who are following us on Facebook that they may also submit questions in the comment section on Facebook. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Thank you. Our first question comes from Larry Togans, and it is for Barbara. I'm sorry. The question is for all candidates. Do you support the board members' decision to allocate funds to fight Rockwell? And if so, why? Or if not, why? And we will begin our questioning with Ms. Lochner. Just a moment, listen for your turn. Ms. Lochner, Mr. Osborne, Ms. Fuller, Ms. Joy, Ms. Kerrigan, and then Ms. Godlove, in that order, please. You may begin.
Okay, thank you. So fortunately, all of that occurred before I got on the board because that was a rough time, wasn't it? But I will certainly say that I would not have supported the funding of the Rockwell fight. We had so many other issues with infrastructure and things that needed to occur in the infrastructure of all of our buildings. We've brought that up. We also have a decline in our student enrollment right now, which means we're not bringing in as much to the state formula, so we're not getting funds. The table games are not bringing money, so there's been a lot of difficulty in terms of finances. I will say, having been on this board, I've seen how they have strategically come back. We just passed a new budget for the next year, a nice balanced budget. And so that's what I have to say about that. That's it.
Who was next? I didn't remember.
I think I was, but I'm
yes,
not
Mr.
sure.
Osborne, yes.
I did not support that vote. I abstained from that vote. I was very concerned.
Osborne.
Yes. Yes. I abstained from that vote because I was very concerned about the costs that we would occur from that. And so I did not think there was any way possible that we could win that battle, and the cost was far too much for me to vote for that. Thank you.
I guess I'm up next. I also would not have voted for that. I think that it was a frivolous use of money. As Dr. Lochner had said, there are plenty of other places where funds could have been diverted, whether it is to school programs, to teachers' salaries, or to infrastructure. I would not have been on board with that. Thank you.
Donna?
Ms. Joy?
Yeah, I would not support it for a few reasons. I felt like it was based on false pretenses. I believe that Air County has neglected special education as a whole for many years, and that special ed students were being exploited for the benefit of this rock wool fight. We have spent over 50 years trying to get special education students included into the regular classroom. So it's illegal what they were trying to do as far as federal laws, PL 94-142. You can't put all of your special needs students in one location. So for many reasons, it was the wrong thing to do. I think it sent a bad message to the public. It caused a lot of distrust. We have adults who were supposed to lead and direct with honor and respect, and it sent a really bad message to students to create a scenario to get your needs met. It's not what we ought to be doing as a school system. So I think I've answered that. Thank you.
I believe I'm next. I was
Ms.
asked,
Kerrigan?
thank you. I was asked this recently, and my answer is that I can't be at 100% sure, being an outsider, what I would have done, having not been advised by legal expert or the legal counsel. But assuming that the school board was advised as to what the legal repercussions would have been, and that the school board would have probably been sued by Rockwool, which is what happened, and that Rockwool would have had to make a settlement for $250,000 toward a future student service center, which is what happened. I probably would have supported it because otherwise we wouldn't have gotten those funds for the future center. Second, I kind of disagree that it sent the wrong message to the community. I actually believe that it sent the message that to the community that the school board was listening to people. I think that I would like to see the view that physical well-being is separate from education. Without physical health, we can't pursue education. We can't use our education. The priority is making sure our students are healthy, making sure they are set up with every opportunity as much as possible to pursue their education. So I actually believe that the board in that decision showed that they were doing their duty, which is to be the link between the community, the public, and the administration of the schools. Now, having said that, that's coming from someone who's an outsider, did not know what the advising was from any kind of legal counsel standpoint. But I do believe that it showed students that the school board wants to do right by them and make sure that they're looking out for them. It was not an ideal scenario by any means, but that's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Ms. Godlove, it's you.
Hi, Amanda Godlove. Regarding the moving forward with the lawsuit against Rockwool, I would have been in support of it at that time. I had mentioned earlier that part of my skill set is looking at expenditures and evaluating what I would like to call it a return on your investment. In this particular case, we invested approximately $80,000 in legal fees and received a settlement of $250,000. Now, going into that, yes, there was a risk there. However, I felt at the time that, as Ms. Kerrigan mentioned, that at the time, the Board of Education, I was attending the meetings, there were hundreds of parents in attendance. They were lining the hallways. Sadly, the board did not receive all the information that was accurate in regards to the situation. And this was, in my view, a way of them moving forward and saying, hey, we're not happy with what just happened here. Our families aren't happy. This is going to have a negative impact of one of our schools that is, you know, underserved in a lot of areas. It is one of our poorer communities. It does, I think, adversely impact minorities. And I feel that in this case, the Board of Education moved forward. They moved forward with a lawsuit that resulted in additional income for the county. And for that, I'd have to say I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Carl Mayfield. And this question is for Barbara Fuller only. The question being asked is, you are the treasurer of Jefferson County Prosperity, a group that for the last year has engaged in numerous attacks on Jefferson County residents and small businesses. JCP was founded, among others, by Mark Everhart, who recently suspended his after online posts by him containing racist remarks against African Americans and insults were discovered. Most recently, JCP has compared the head of the county's health department to Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin and called for his resignation over his enactment of policies designed to protect residents from COVID-19. Are you willing to resign from JCP and denounce their reprehensible behavior that is no way expected from a Board of Education member?
You have to unmute, please.
Ms. Solo, that is directed to you.
If I am elected for Board of Education, I am required to suspend all activities with Jefferson County Prosperity and with the Jefferson County Republican Executive Committee, and I have no problem doing so. Yes, I am the treasurer. I handle their bills and I handle their fundraising. Do I handle their posts? No, I do not. Do I feel that the comments that were supposedly made on a Reddit post that were supposedly Mark Everhart's, I haven't had confirmation that those were his, but those comments were disgusting. They were absolutely horrid. I would never use such language ever. JCP has a purpose, and theirs is to let people know exactly what's going on in the county. Sometimes they push too far with too much information, and some of their opinions are different than others. Are they lies? No, I don't believe they are. I hope that answers his question.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Terry Thornton, and this is for all the candidates. Her question is, presumably the state will issue guidelines, but if some discretion is left to local school districts, what is your personal opinion regarding requiring vaccinations and contact tracing for those entering the school, whether students, employees, or vendors, family members, volunteers, etc.? And we will start with Ms. Lochner.
Thank you. So, you know, the pandemic has left us all in a place where we have no idea. It's all new to all of us, right? And how can we best facilitate and handle this? Contact tracing is certainly something that's being used in other countries that provides them with a benefit of information so that they can get back to some normalcy. I'm certainly not a big proponent of Big Brother following me and knowing where I'm at and what I'm doing. So unless I know a lot more about contact tracing and how we're giving our information away, it would be very difficult for me to support that. Thank you.
Ms. Joy?
I did not get to hear the question. Could you repeat that? I heard parts of it. So.
Presumably, the state will issue guidelines. Oh, that's not it. Oh. Presumably, the state will issue guidelines, but if some discretion is left to local school districts, what is your personal opinion regarding vaccinations, contact tracing for those entering the school, whether students, employees, vendors, family members, volunteers, etc.?
Well, first I want to just say two things about the previous two questions. I think that schools absolutely should protect students. It's just the way that they did it, I had a problem with. And number two, right now on the Prosperity website, there is a blatant lie about me. It's been there for several weeks. So now I'll go on to this one. So my concern is that they're rushing these vaccinations. I know that it takes a minimum of 18 months to come up with a vaccination. I don't know when they started, but NIH only started this past spring, apparently, according to the news report. So that's very concerning. And then again, I agree that the contact tracing, we need to know a whole lot more information about that issue before we can start requiring. So I think that answers the question.
Ms. Godlove?
Yes, hi, Amanda Godlove. I heard two parts of that question. The first one was about, I think, vaccinations as a whole, and then specifically addressing the COVID-19, assuming that we do get a vaccination. Currently, 3.6% of the United States population is immunocompromised. The reason that schools require vaccinations for their children who attend is in order to protect those few. Again, this goes back to what I spoke of initially, which is success for all our children. Those children need to have a safe environment where they can learn. As far as an upcoming vaccination for COVID-19, I do share some of the concerns with some of my colleagues here in that it's going to take time for that. I do not feel that we should rush forward with vaccinating, especially our children, until an adequate time frame has been determined as far as human trials and some of those safety pieces. I believe that vaccinations offer a good benefit to our society. However, I will be honest, I get nervous that we are moving very quickly towards a vaccination. We need it. But I don't want to put more lives at risk trying to solve that problem. The second part of your question had to do with, can you repeat that second part? I know you have vaccinations. There was one other piece to that, and I apologize.
It was contact tracing.
The contact tracing. I'm torn on this one because I am fairly protective of my individual rights and my privacy. However, that I feel that sometimes it's overlooked that as a society, we have given up so many of those inadvertently, whether we realize it or not, with our devices, specifically our phones. And a lot of the programs and just the fact that we have a cell phone, we have given up some of those, and I'm not sure if I am for that or not. For me, I use a cell phone. I use apps that do some tracking and whatnot because it is a convenience. For contact tracing, it is such a tricky area. I would say that those that are comfortable should have the opportunity to participate in contact tracing. Should it be a requirement? I'm not comfortable with that. But I would hope that individuals would accept some of that, the downside for the greater good of society. So, thank you.
Mr. Osborne. Please unmute your mic.
It takes a second.
I'm not comfortable with contract tracing at this point. And I think on the vaccine, we're moving too quickly, and I'm uncomfortable with that. I think us in Jefferson County are very unique, but we have quite a population up here that is infected. So I think our local health department probably needs to be who we consult on how we progress in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kerrigan, please.
Thanks. I agree that we need to look to the experts and we need to look to the data to make any kind of calls like this. I'm also very uncomfortable with any kind of vaccine that hasn't gone through proper trials and research. As far as contact tracing, with the nature of this particular pandemic, COVID-19, they're saying that contact tracing is not even effective with fighting this particular disease because of the nature of the asymptomatic spread of the disease. People can be carriers and never show symptoms and be spreading it all the while. So yeah, I'm not comfortable with contact tracing, but even if I were, it's not proving to be even an effective way to combat this pandemic. Also, this is assuming that we will all be back in the fall, which I don't believe is happening. As far as the latest, I believe is still school choice, whether if people, not school choice, but the choice between each family, if they want to send their child to school or if they want to continue with online education. That's one of those things that we need to continue to weigh the risk versus the benefit. What is the risk of infection and what is the risk of keeping kids home who really are falling through the cracks by staying home and who are not completing the work, either because they have obstacles at home or they don't have support network at home through their parents. It seems that 85% of the kids who are completing the online work are coming from wealthy families. So that's a problem right there that we need to weigh that risk against the risk of spreading the infection. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fuller?
Okay, I am completely against contact tracing. I think it's a huge invasion of privacy. I also have a problem with my cell phone carrier and every app that I use tracing my every little click or wherever I go. As far as vaccinations, I think that once vaccinations are proven, I wouldn't have a problem requiring them. Unfortunately, when I see the vaccinations for the current year's flu, their strain of flu, they picked the wrong one. So when we're going to mandate people to have immunizations such as flu shots, and well, COVID-19 is a glorified flu, how are they going to be able to pinpoint exactly what's coming down the pike? Would I like to make sure that everybody else doesn't get it? Yeah, would be amazing if we could do that. I'm immunocompromised and I was in for 2 months trying not to go anywhere unless I needed to. I would rather not get COVID-19 or COVID-20 or COVID-21, however it may be. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Larry Togans, and this question is directed to Mr. Osborne. Diversity coordinator position was filled at the end of 2019. Position was vacant for more than a year and a half. Why did it take so long to fill such vital position, and what percentage of the incumbent's time will be spent working on diversity issues? Unmute your mic, please.
I'm not sure exactly what the percentage of time, but I'm assuming that her percentage of time on diversity will be between 60 and 75%. And that was a position we thought that was very important. So we had to look for a person that we thought was of high standing and would be exceptional in that position. And I think we did find somebody that has a great background and experience in that area. And I think she's going to make great strides for us in that position. But I'm glad we did wait, because I think we got a high quality person.
Thank you. The next question is, if elected to the school board, what do you think you could do and would do to narrow and or to close the racial achievement gap that presently exists in the county schools? And we will begin this question with Ms. Godlove.
Hi, thank you. Amanda Godlove. This is probably one of the toughest questions that we've had this evening. The racial gap exists. The first thing that we need to do as a board is assist our educators, our teachers, our service personnel, and our staff to become more aware of their actions and how possibly inadvertently, whether it's conscious or unconscious, they are continuing this gap. They're not minimizing it. That there is racial bias in the classroom, as well as in some of the materials that we use. I think that we, as the board and as individuals, need to hold each other accountable to increase our standards and how we teach all our children, and to make sure that we're taking a hard look at our own actions, that each of our children is getting the same opportunities. I think as the board is, in addition to that, that we need to look a little bit harder at our materials that our children are seeing on a daily basis, that they are more inclusive, that they have children represent, our county and the diversity within it. I think that that's key. By not having some of that diversity in the materials, there's a subliminal message sent that, I don't know, it's a very hard issue for me, because I feel very strongly that we can do better. And I think the first piece comes with becoming aware of it, recognizing that we do have a challenge in ensuring that all our children receive an equal education, whether it's in tested materials, in the way that we teach, in the quantity that we call on different children, how we address concerns presented by themselves or their families. I think there's a lot of ways that we can just continue to improve and slowly close that gap. So thank you.
Perfect. Ms. Kerrigan?
Thank you. I think this is another instance where we need to look to the experts, let them tell us what we need to do, and most of all, raise awareness about all of our biases. We all have biases, and how do we battle that? How do we make sure that we're not approaching different children in different ways, or different teachers or different staff in different ways? And also encourage, kind of build a culture that encourages us to listen and not act like we have all the answers all the time. We need to listen to people of color and listen to their experiences and believe what they're going through, and encourage our peers too to do the same. And again, I have a lot to learn about this, and especially in light of recent events in the news, we have a long way to go in this topic. And I think encouraging an open mind saying that we all have a lot to learn in this topic, and we have a lot of work to do to close the gap, the racial gap. Thank you.
Next, Miss Joy. Miss Joy.
Yep, I'm ready. I had to unmute. Well, I think this takes off from what Mark was saying. I recall that that job wasn't even posted for a year. I might be wrong, but that's my memory. I read the full job description, and my concern is that job has changed from when Arthena Roper had that position. She would take the kids out and work with them extensively. She had an amazing program. She took them all across the state, showed them all the colleges, you know, anyway. And now it looks like this position is more about teaching, you know, teacher workshops. So we could use something like that position to start working with kids at the elementary level who are at risk, minorities, low income. We know from research that at second, third grade, if kids are not at reading level, they're going to keep falling behind. We have got to deal with those kids at that age. So this cultural diversity position could be used to really help those kids. So that's one thing. Another thing is that we really need to hire more minorities and keep the ones we have. For example, at Jefferson High School, 7 African-American employees, 5 of them have been they've been either pushed out or encouraged. And I was extremely disappointed when I heard about Coach Hunter. He was very much needed at that school. I don't care what the politics were behind it, but you know, young African-American boys, they went to him at lunchtime. They went to him to get their needs met. He kept tabs on them, encouraging them. He would, you know, help them to get signed up for college. They lost that when he was moved to the middle school for no apparent reason. So those kinds of things have to stop. Somebody needs to look into that issue at Jefferson High School, because we can't lose the few minority instructors and administrators that we have. I think I've said everything, but if we take those kids and start at an early age, and then in addition, we need a transition coordinator, because I have seen so many African-American children who get sports scholarships. They go away for 1 year and they're back home because they don't have the guidance. They don't have a family member that went to college that can teach them how to fill out a financial aid form. They don't know that they have
Time
to.
is up, Ms. Joy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Fuller?
What I would do with the at-risk, the children of color, with the
Closing the achievement gap.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the achievement gaps is I agree with Donna and I agree with Amanda. Amanda really hit the nail on the head with everything she had to say. But to add on to that, I think that it needs to start in elementary school where, you know, the at-risk children kind of get left behind because for whatever reason they are having difficulties for that day. They lose track of what they're doing, and then they keep on falling behind, which falls in line with what Donna was saying. But I think that the key to making sure that our children of color succeed is to let them know that they can, and to keep on reinforcing that anything that they want to do, they can do. But it's going to take work, it's going to take effort, and it's going to take hard time. It's just like I tell my own children, if you want something, you need to go get it. If I can't provide it, you're going to have to find a way to get it for yourself. I'll stand by you as a board that we should always stand by our children, but we need to direct them more so. When my own son graduated last year, they knew that he wasn't going to go to college, and it seemed like, you know, okay, bye, see you. And that's not what we need to do. We need to stand by every single child and make sure that they go where they want to go.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne and then Ms. Lochner.
Well, I think it's very important that we, am I muted?
You muted yourself. You weren't unmuted. You muted yourself now.
Okay, am I okay now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I think it's very important that we differentiate instruction and use different modes of instruction for all children. I think extra small group instruction is very important. And additional learning time beyond just the regular instruction in the classroom. Everybody doesn't learn at the same rate as well in the same way. And I think tutorial time, one-on-one tutorial time, if we can find that for students, is very important. And I think hiring minorities is very important. These children need to have models out there that they can look up to and that will help them and let them know that they can achieve what they want to, because those peer models are good examples of that. So I think providing those different types of instruction, additional instruction, is very important. And yes, there's definitely an achievement gap. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lochner?
I would agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Osborne about some of the things that he mentioned, and that is about the instructional time, the differentiation of instruction, and providing universally designed learning classrooms and environments. But what I would start with right off the bat would be equity audits. We would have to audit what's the teacher quality, the program equity, because it's so important to expose and understand what the underlying root causes are of these issues. There is overwhelming evidence that we have this preschool to prison pipeline, and we have to stop it. One of the ways we could do that is implementing failure is not an option framework in Jefferson County, and that's where everybody's involved and everybody's committed to reducing that achievement gap. Some of the other things that we need to do is we need to have culturally responsive positive behavior intervention support program. Right now we do PBIS, but it's not always culturally responsive. And by that I mean that we have to recognize that students coming from different cultures have different things going on, and we need to consider how that culture plays a factor in their behaviors. Sometimes as teachers in schools, we get into some battles with our students, and we can't do that. We need to be more sensitive to that. Our new PD person, you guys kind of hit on that, Ms. Lewis, she is charged with doing some sensitivity training, that PD around these equity issues, and that's going to make a huge, huge difference. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. Our next question. If elected to the school board, would you agree to reach out to Rockwell to get them to become a business partner and supporter with the schools? And we're going to start with Ms. Joy.
Can
Ms.
you
Joy.
say that again? I didn't hear it. I only heard the part at the end.
The question is, if elected to the school board, would you agree to reach out to Rockwell to get them to become a business partner and supporter with the schools?
Well, I would wait to see how these different hearings are going to go. I know there's been ongoing court cases between Rockwell and the citizens. So, you know, it really depends how those things go. I would reach out to any established company that is willing to provide assistance if needed. But specifically Rockwell, I think it's best. We have a big problem with the school board now is a broken trust between the school board and the community. And for a school board member to rush in and join with Rockwool, it kind of goes against what we might need time to heal. And, you know, perhaps in the long term, that could be an option, but not immediately. For the reasons I said, it's just not good community relations right now. Half the county hates Rockwool, the other half doesn't care. So I think I've answered that.
Thank you. Ms. Lochner? I'm sorry, Ms. Godlove, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, that's a tough question, right? For all the reasons that
You're muted. Ms. Godlove?
Yes, thank you. Amanda Godlove. I'm trying to figure out the best way for it. Should I be elected to the Board of Education? My responsibility is to the community because I'm elected by the community members. I have been watching this kind of unfold with Rockwool over the past 2 years and have found that the majority of the citizens, more than 50%, I will say that. I don't have a specific number, but I do know that petitions and protests have registered thousands of individuals that were not happy with the placement or the location of Rockwool specific to North Jefferson Elementary, and some of the risks that it may pose to those children. Therefore, I think at this time, as Donna Joy mentioned, I don't think this is an appropriate time to reach out and further a relationship with them. Going forward, I think we need to see what happens in the county with the pending lawsuits. Should they end up being an established member of the community, at that point in time, I would look to treat them just like any other business member in this community. The school districts, and I'm a big proponent of partnerships within the community and businesses. They can inject a little, not just money into the school system, but support in other ways. And I do think that's important to build those relationships. But at this time with Rockwool, given the current legislation, as well as the feeling of families and parents as evidenced by them showing up at Board of Education meetings and expressing their concern, I would not reach out to Rockwool to further a relationship with them.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne?
I agree with my colleagues earlier that we need time right now. I don't think it's a good time for us to seek that business partnership out. They are very active in our community and they've supported a lot of things in our community. And hopefully there will be some healing as time goes on. And maybe 3 or 4 years from now, it'll be a different scenario. But I don't think this is the present time to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Lochner?
I would concur with my colleagues. I think there is that time that needs to pass. I think there needs to be trust that needs to be established. There's still so many unknowns and variables around schools and how they're going to be as a business partner in our community. So there's some things to prove to us. Down the road, I'm all about, we always need to heal any relationship, so we'll always be divided. So I certainly hope we get to that point where we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fuller and then Ms. Kerrigan.
If I were elected to the Board of Education, would I do I feel that down the road they would be sufficient business partners? I think so. I would like to hope so. And I would like to see other businesses get involved, whether they be small mom and pops all the way down to Rockwell or Procter and Gamble, Macy's, or whomever. But until litigation is done, I don't think that the nature of the beast gives you with the nature of everything that's going on, it would not be pertinent to go over right away. I think there does need to be time, and I can agree with everybody else on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to go kind of against the grain here, and I'm not sure how popular this answer will be, probably not very, but to me, it doesn't matter what amount of time passes by. That doesn't change the level of toxins that they are releasing right next to our elementary school. That's not going to make the PM 2.5 any less toxic or harmful. It's not going to cause any less asthma in our kids. And since I absolutely disagree on a fundamental level with putting a coal burning factory across the road from an elementary school, no, I would not be interested in partnering with Rockwell. I think that, you know, the past 2 years I've been pretty vocal, at least within my household, about my feelings toward the situation, and then to turn around and say I'm willing to stop caring about that for money. No, what kind of message does that send to my kids? That's not, you know, I think we need to show more integrity than that. We can't, our opinions can't be bought and changed just because our schools badly need money. Yes, we badly need money, but it's not going to come from corporations who want to change their public relations problem in our community.
Thank you. Our next question is going to come from our group chat, which you should be able to see. And this question is, while we are a high achieving school district, our achievement levels are stagnant. It seems like we often just do more of the same methods. What type of innovation do you think could take us to the next level? And how do you think the county leaders could be supported and or pushed to use more innovative methods? This question is coming from Priscilla Rod. And we will start at the top with Ms. Lochner. Unmute Ms. Lochner.
Right, so
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the things that we need, okay. Some of the innovations we're actually somehow have been catapulted to, and that's the use of virtual. That is certainly an innovation that gives us some flexibility about students always sitting in classrooms and just getting seat time, right? Because that's what it's been for years upon years, is that, you know, there's this requirement for our students to sit in this. So looking at the innovations that technology gives us is we can certainly start to implement, and we're starting to do that now. We need to see that on a broader basis. Next thing is our tech and the ability to look at what are our new jobs that are coming down the road and have our, like several have mentioned before, that may not be that may not be an option for some, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be getting a quality education. And we need to provide different ways of learning and different ways of teaching to provide that for all of our students. One way that I would suggest is what's called universal design for learning, where we be proactive rather than reactive with all of our students, meeting our students where their need is, looking at them as individuals and trying to personalize their learning as much as possible by getting to know them uniquely.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne? Unmute.
I think it's very important for quality staff development for our teachers constantly. We have to grow our teachers, and we have to make them aware of new methods and ways of teaching that are out there. I think also with where we've been forced into with virtual learning, it's showing us that a whole lot of children live in multiple ways and they learn in different ways. And I think we're being forced into addressing that whether we want to or not. I think one area that is very important that we're kind of weak in right now is our VOTEC area. And somehow we have to make that more available to all our children. And we have to address the VOTEC area so it is parallel with the jobs that are out there in our region and in our county. And we need our kids job ready when they come out of school.
Thank you. Ms. Godlove.
Hi, thank you. Amanda Godlove. I love how Ms. Rod addressed this and said, I recognize that we are a high achieving, but we're kind of staying stagnant. I think a part of that is we're kind of I feel like sometimes we've fallen into, hey, it's working. Let's just keep doing that. I think there's a lot of opportunity for additional growth and development, not just with our teachers, but with our service personnel and support staff. And by ongoing training and additional things, I don't mean more in-service days where they sit down, but providing them with some opportunities to explore learning in areas that they feel would benefit them and their teaching styles. I think Mark touched on it. We said, this COVID has helped us really bring to the forefront different learning styles of our young people. I know there are all different kinds of learners. There's auditory, there's ones that do better by visual. And part of the transition of kind of taking our high achieving to the next level is going to be cueing off our children and letting them honestly become more involved in the education process, meaning they will identify and let us know if we listen and if we watch them carefully, what's going to be the most effective learning for them and what they need. I do feel that we do have some restrictions in place as far as, we have to fit into certain molds as far as standardized testing and evaluating that way that comes from a state level. So I know we'll have to work within that and somewhat work around it a little bit. I think becoming aware of what other schools, not just in our country, but around the world are doing to increase the achievement of their students. I'm very intrigued and a proponent of some more play-based education for our younger children. Also, one of the things that I think kind of holds our children back from a standpoint of achievement is in our classes, a lot of times, because we have so much material to cover, I hear teachers say, I'm trying to engage the students, but I'm getting all my material out and I'm talking at them versus talking with them. And I think that's kind of a key piece, is allowing them more time to kind of direct some of those conversations so that we can help get to their level.
Thank you. Time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Joy.
Yeah, first of all, we need to be using research-based strategies. The reading program in the county, unless it changed within the last 2 years, has been shown to be the least effective. So that's one thing. We could do achievement checks the way that Washington County does at the end of every quarter. I mean, they have a sophisticated system, which is amazing, but we don't have to go that elaborate. At least at the end of each grade, or at the end of when kids are going from 5th to 6th, there's a huge drop in achievement because they don't have the skills needed for the new 6th grade. When they go from 8th grade to the high school, another huge drop, especially in math and English. If we tested those kids at the end of 7th and saw, okay, you are really gonna struggle when you get to high school, you can include the online and give them. I mean, we have computer programs that cost $9 per student, and these students can do on their own to fill in those gaps. I've used them as a teacher, and it works amazing to fill in some of the achievement gaps for math. So it's especially important for math and English, because those two classes carry through. The math is a foundation, so every year, if you're behind, you just keep getting further behind. Another issue, we really need to stop abusing credit recovery in Jefferson County. Our current administration has the goal of graduating as many students as possible. So there is a serious abuse of credit recovery. Kids, at least at Jefferson, they are given the message that if I go to school 5 times, I can show up in the trailer at the end of the year, do an hour of a class, look up the answers online, I get a credit. And that's not helping anybody. The discipline in the classes, if you're in AP and honors, you do pretty well. But if the kids are assigned to other than those classes, it's hit or miss because of a lot of the discipline problems. That's another issue that comes from administration. Where, you say I'm done. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, but I see. Okay,
Kerrigan.
thank you.
Thank you. I went to echo Mr. Osborne's wishes that we get a stronger VOTEC system, and I've heard, I think Miss Joy talked in the past about how far kids have to travel to get the vocational classes. So somehow bringing that facility back closer to the school where they aren't on the bus for half the day would be immensely helpful. I'd like to put a focus on partnering with organizations in the community. Right now we have kids that participate in work exploration programs in their high schools. And I would love to see an emphasis put on modern tech jobs. If we could get kids out and in the field with professionals and have sort of a role model to witness, plant the seeds of those kind of ideas in their heads of what they can do in their future, it would do a world of good. I also would like to look at data. Like, we need data to make decisions, right? So I would like to see the data on how kids learn the best as far as start times of school days, other areas where we can make minor changes, but kids would see a huge improvement because we've adapted the school day to work with how their brains work, not making them adapt to the way we do it. And the only reason is because that's the way we've always done it. So having more adaptive attitude toward what we can do with even our small day-to-day things. I'd also like to encourage the community involvement. Without the community, we don't have as much support as we could. And I think—
Thank you. I'm sorry, your time has expired.
Okay,
Ms. Fuller, we will hear your question. Before you start your question, we are coming down to the last hours of this forum, and the next questions will be 1 minute each, but you will have 2 minutes on this question, and we will conclude the following questions with 1 minute response. Thank you.
I will try to keep it brief. Our same methods aren't working. I would love to see more online learning. I think that for those kids that excel working at home at their own rate, their own speed, it's beneficial. I would love to see more VOTEC. I would love to see more STEM classes. I wouldn't mind seeing, because all children do learn differently, I wouldn't mind seeing a charter school for kids who excel in math, who know what they want to do. Some kids, right off the bat, they know that they want to be, a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever. But for those who involved in the sciences, it's something for them that if they can go be in their happy place, they will tend to learn better, learn faster, and be more successful. And I think that the amount of success that we need to give our kids is based upon how much we put into it. And I think that we need to find a program that works and stick with it instead of always changing.
Thank you. Our next question is in our chat group, and that question is, what external teaching tools are currently being put into practice so they are not omitted in the learning process, inclusive of summer learning in state? They are being totally neglected and allowed to regress. And that's coming from Augusta Reed. And we will start with Ms. Lochner, keeping in mind that we are only on 1 minute.
Can you repeat the question? It was just an unstable connection, so I did not hear much.
It is in your chat group, and the question is at the bottom: what external teaching tools are being currently put into practice so they are not omitted in the learning process, inclusive of summer learning in state? Special needs students are being totally neglected and allowed to regress.
Yeah, so this is certainly an area that is near and dear to me, because my whole career has been working with special ed students, and we have a gap that is widening. And it is something that we have to address and provide opportunities this summer. And we are certainly discussing and coming up with those plans as to what we can offer for our students, particularly our special needs students, so that they have some programs for this summer that will address the gaps that have widened due to COVID.
Thank you. Next, we will have Mr. Osborne.
Yeah, this is a big area of concern, and it's really a hard area to make any suggestions on, because we don't know where we are right now with COVID-19 and how many people we can have together. Now, we can continue to virtually instruct. That's not a problem. But are we reaching all those children, and are we reaching those children that need it most? And I feel that those children need that instructor with them for those children to be successful. So that's a real difficult one for this summer that we're coming into at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Fuller?
Well, as a parent of a special ed kid who his IEP was misread, and instead of being out for 20 minutes was only in class for 20 minutes, I would like to see more one-on-one for those students. I think that if there's a opportunity for teachers to possibly spend extra time with our special needs kids over the summers, just to try to keep them up to par and kind of keep them in that standard daily activity so they don't keep falling behind. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Joy?
Yeah, so the question is what's being done. I can tell you in Alexandria, Virginia, they just announced, I read that in the paper today, that they're requiring all their students to go to summer school because of the time that was missed. So I believe that we should at least make summer school available free of charge to any student that is interested in attending summer school. Now, whether it's in person or online, that's another story. But also, we could really improve in the online instruction. I've been teaching online in addition to face-to-face for 19 years, and there are various platforms that are used successfully. They are even better at times. They have the video, the transcript. The students can go back. There's a lot of things that we could be doing to help our students to keep up over the summer. A lot of video games are available.
Your time has expired.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Kerrigan?
I think that for, not in the summer, but during the school year, our teachers need more support in this. It seems to be there needs to be a person who's in charge of the administration of of the plans that assists the teacher, helps them support the students. The teachers are kind of drowning when it comes to that. And I agree that keeping summer school available is a wonderful idea. For important to prevent kids from falling behind and from losing progress that they've made during the school year, especially right now during COVID, when so many kids are falling behind. And to keep the contact to prevent that loss of progress.
Thank you. And last, we will have, that was the last one, I'm sorry. No, Ms. Godlove.
Hi. We have a number of concerns, especially with our special needs students. This time out has been very difficult for them in continuing their education. In some cases, some of our parents aren't equipped or have the knowledge to work with their students and with their children to help them close that gap. I don't have a full solution on what that would look like at this time. I do know that we need to work with them. I am aware that there are teachers and some of the principals, they are reaching out to some of their families with students that were identified as kind of being at risk with struggling through the process of having a longer gap in the break and trying to come up with some individual education plans for them. But I'm not aware of any broad scope for all the students across the board at all levels. And I definitely think, we could do more. And that our teachers are doing their best. This came up kind of unexpectedly, and so it's very hard to turn on a dime, but we need to find out what we can do to support them. Thank you.
Our next question, keep it in mind, everyone, that we are with 1 minute to respond to the question. The next question is, if elected to the school board, would you support or not support the teachers that strike for pay or other benefits? And we're going to start with Ms. Godlove.
Excellent, thank you. Did you get a chance? Would you support us to strike for pay and extra? Okay, sorry, I was just reading the question. I am a proponent of meeting our teachers' needs, bottom line. If they're telling me that they need something more to do their job, I am a proponent of that. I understand that the striking is very hard, and I think it should be used as a last resort. But that we do, especially in this area, the fact that they have not received cost of living adjustments, that their insurance continues to eat out of their pocket, really bothers me. It rubs me wrong. And in those cases, again, I think it's a last resort, but if they're on the picket line, I know it's because it's really hard for them to continue to do their job successfully with the pay and benefits that they're currently receiving. Alex, they just saw you naked on the internet.
Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you. Yes, I would support the teachers. In fact, when I had the restaurant, I publicly supported the teachers on the news by offering free lunch for all kids during the strike. And I think we have to look at the wider scale, the broad scale of this. And the fact is that better pay improves our school system as a whole. We cannot be competitive with Loudoun County and Washington County if we don't compensate our teachers well. A lot of the control is in the state capitol. So if putting pressure on the state capitol involves a teacher strike as a last resort, then that's what has to be done. Because at the end of the day, if we are not supporting our teachers and not giving them a fair wage, a salary, then our entire educational system suffers and we're losing good teachers.
Thank you. Ms. Joy?
Well, it's kind of a sticky situation because currently it's illegal to strike in West Virginia. So if I say, yes, I support it, then I'm supporting something illegal. So what I can say is that I encourage our legislators and unions to advocate for locality pay. And we should be doing everything we can to keep the teachers that we have. We have various benefits that we could be offering that we are not. We used to have a form of childcare, various other incentives. With that being said, if it got to a point where teachers need to strike, there is, you know, I'm not going to go against anybody that's going to strike, you know, but I don't want to break the law at the same time. So I don't understand that question so much. Does that make sense? Anyway.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Osborne.
Well, I want people to know that teachers don't like to strike. And the only reason they did strike and walk out is because our state legislators ignored them and their backs were against the wall. And this might not be popular, but I walked the picket line with them when I was a principal because I believed in what they were doing. And I thought it was very important. And I'll walk the picket line with them again if I need to.
Thank you. Last, Ms. Lochner.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. You know, we're in a difficult situation where we are in this tri-state area and we are not retaining our teachers. We are simply a training ground. They come here for a couple of years and then they go somewhere else. And particularly in our schools where we have a lot of high poverty population, those schools are not staffed with teachers that have been teaching for a very long time or have credentials. So we need to do whatever it takes to keep really great teachers here in Jefferson County.
Thank you. And our last question for the evening is, if elected to the school board, would you support the closing, combining, and moving the North Jefferson and T.A. Lowry schools to the Curry Road property that JCS presently own? And we're going to start with Ms. Joy.
Can you say that again? I heard parts of it.
Sure.
And I'm muted. I'm unmuted.
It is in your chat, but I will read it to you again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Closing, combining, and moving.
If elected to the school board, would you support the closing, combining, and moving the North Jefferson T.A. Lowry schools to the Curry Road property that the JCS presently own?
Okay. Well, it depends on the purpose. If it's, I'm assuming that people may want to move that because of the Rockwool plant, because of the school being so close to that. If that's, you know, if it comes to something like that, or if it's the building that is the construction, if that's an issue, then I'm, you know, all for it. But if it's a burden for the community, then, you know, that's another issue. I don't know enough about the reason for that to be able to say whether or not I support it. But, you know, it's up to the best needs of the students. And if we are protecting them from harm in any way, then we absolutely need to do that. But if it's a burden for the families, then, so it really depends on polling the community and the students involved, the families of the students involved. That's all.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Godlove.
Hi. I would need to do an accurate assessment of the pros and cons, basically, you know, look at, will there be a return on that investment and what would it be? Certainly, when we look at return on investment, when it comes to our children, it's not a dollar amount, but it's more towards, will it further their educational goals? Is this an area that, if by spending money to do this, is it going to benefit those children directly? Another piece is, of course, as others mentioned, The Board of Education, I feel, is there to serve the families as well as the children. So I would ask for their input as well as the evaluation of what the return on that investment in making those changes would be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne?
I think that we'd have to see what the environmental testing shows, and if it shows that it is having a negative effect on our students and their health, then I would most certainly advocate for us moving that school further away from Rockwool. But their county residents would have to understand that it would take a construction bond to do this, because the state would not give us any money to do this.
Thank you, Ms. Lochner. Ms. Lochner?
Yes, so I would agree. Certainly our health, the health safety of students. Yes. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We have to make sure that the health and safety of our students is a priority, but we may need to do it in different ways than building a new building. Also, we have to realize that community there, having taught at North Jefferson, that school was part of that community in a way that it is a safe place. It's a place that helps feed those students, provides a lot of support to that community. So they have to be involved in that decision making as well.
Thank you. Ms. Fuller? Ms. Fuller, you.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, that property was slated for the combined schooling for Ranson for a new elementary and high school, or new elementary middle school. I wouldn't mind seeing North Jefferson and T.A. Lowry going to that facility, with the benefit that you're getting a new school, new resources, and if it's properly built, they won't tax the overwhelming budgets for each of those schools. So right now we have propane heating for both TA and for North Jefferson. If they went with something a little bit more economical, like I just lost my train of thought. I was going to say solar, but that's not even anything that is economical at this point. Geothermal.
Sorry to interrupt, but your time has expired.
No,
Last,
that's fine.
Ms. Kerrigan?
I would also need to see the data, the pros and cons. This is why it's important to have our testing and our monitoring, except that the problem with some of the testing is it's not testing the right stuff. And so it's hard to make those calls if we don't have the data. We need to look at not just the factory itself, but also the trucks. It's expected to have up to 100 tractor trailer trucks up and down the road every day. So is anybody going to be testing the exhaust of those trucks? I don't think anybody is. So that's why it's really important to have the monitoring in place right now so that we can make those calls in the future. But first, but we cannot let the Shepherdstown kids slip through the cracks once again. Their facilities, they're in need of adequate facilities.
Thank you. And I will turn this over to Reverend Lyles for the closing statements, which will be limited to 2 minutes. Reverend Lyles.
Thank you, Ms. Ringo, for a job well done. At this time, we will begin our closing statements, and we will begin with Ms. Godlove. If you will unmute.
Yep. How much time do we have for those?
2 minutes, ma'am.
2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the NAACP for hosting us this evening, and all the supporters online. I have to say that this has really been the most challenging of all our forums, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to hear from your group and some of the concerns that the folks here today have. I just want to wrap back around with, success for every child, and what does that look like, and my commitment to that. And a lot of the questions went towards that today, which is how do we address some of those special needs students? How do we address some of the students from our minority families and ensure that our text and teaching materials are representing them? How do we address our own biases to minimize the achievement gap between the different races? As well as coming up with solid plans to support our children in whatever direction they choose. I stand by that not every child is going to say, hey, a four-year college is for me. Not every student says, hey, I want to come out with the debt of a four-year college. So we need to work with them and their individual needs. I know that among educators at times, they struggle with some of the special needs students and feeling like they have to stop what they're doing in order to address that individual child's needs. And we need to provide the support for our educators so that they can do that, so that they can help those children that need a little extra or that need some more of their time. If I'm elected, I have some plans in place. I'd love to create a role of teacher liaison, and that's a person to support specifically our teachers and service personnel with concerns that they may have. Their principals are kind of their go-to, and they're busy day to day just keeping that school running and our children safe. I'd also like, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kerrigan, please.
Thank you. I also want to thank everyone for this opportunity to speak. I really, really appreciate it. I think I would like everyone to just take away from what I offer is, I'm just a mom that I am concerned about my kids and about the other kids. I do have a lot to learn, but I also offer the opportunity to do so. And I am a I welcome information, making decisions based on the research and information that we have at our fingertips. I also will make every decision and call with the philosophy that education is our most important investment as a society. Without an educated workforce, our society is going to suffer greatly in the future. And so it's up to us, the adults, to make every possible decision in the best way that we can for our kids. And so I want to be part of the village that helps lessen the impact of the issues, the modern issues that are hurting our kids, whether it's opioid addiction, the racial gap, poverty, inadequate access to internet, all of these issues that are holding some of our kids back and letting them fall through the cracks. I really would welcome the opportunity to be part of the team that works on those problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Joy?
Well, again, thank you for hosting the forum, and thank you to everybody who came out to be informed about the candidates. I've lived in Jefferson County for over 15 years. My children started at Asbury Methodist Church preschool, and they've gone through the Jefferson County school system. One graduated from WVU in the spring, and the other's starting to be a junior at Shepherd. I'm a career educator, and I'm passionate about education as evidenced by my numerous degrees and teaching experiences. I have extensive volunteer experience, which is another testament of my commitment to Jefferson County. I mentioned that I am a volunteer recovery coach with through John Unger's program with the courts, the drug court, and the emergency rooms, and I also host an online coaching platform. I believe that I am the candidate that is the most culturally aware. I've written a children's book about Native American customs and global warming. My poems were just published in an anthology of the African American experience, along with famous African American writers, Crystal Wilkinson, Frank X. Walker, Nikki Giovanni. I am, anybody that knows me knows that if I see an injustice, I am relentless in correcting it. and I am completely committed to improving our schools. I have a track record of extensive volunteer work with the schools in addition to the recovery coaching. I think that's about everything. So thank you
That is
again.
your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Fuller?
Thank you again for having us. I'm going to backtrack to the teacher strike question because you guys kind of skipped me. But I would not support a strike because it's illegal in West Virginia. I would suggest that that our unions do their job and fight for our teachers, because I do feel that our teachers do deserve to be paid fairly. One of the reasons why I think that I would be good for the Board of Education, to my closing, is because I have the time, I have the effort, and I have the gumption to help our community. And one of the things my husband and I were talking about today was that as adults, we have one job to do, and that job is to set up the next generation for success. And if we don't do that, we are part of the problem. I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to give success to all of our students, not just some, not just the smart, but to all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne?
I'd like to thank the NAACP for hosting. They always have an interesting forum and a challenging forum. We definitely need to focus on achieving the achievement gap from many different areas, race, economic disadvantaged children. I believe strongly in public education. My parents instilled that in me. We need to continue to improve our school system. We have to prepare our children for jobs of the future that we're not even sure what they may be at this time. And I'd like to thank the public for supporting me for the last 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Lochner?
Thank you for hosting tonight. It was a wonderful forum. We truly appreciate the opportunity to be here and let our voices be heard. I've been fighting for the students of Jefferson County for many years, the classroom and outside classroom, and now, having been in the interim position. And I really want to implement this failure is not an option framework. I want it in every school so that every student, every family in our community can benefit. We need to continue to strategically put money, programs, and infrastructure in the right places. But nothing replaces the relationships our students have with teachers, staff, coaches, lunch ladies, janitors in our schools. We can all remember that one, that one that had that impact on our lives. I remember Mr. Mack taking me in the gym and shooting basketball with me when I had a bad day. We need to make sure that students are connected with their educational students. Nothing replaces that relationship, and it's vital. We have to step up our school system and commit ourselves to this philosophy that every student has the right to be educated with their peers in a safe and supportive environment. Equity isn't equality. Equity is to provide those appropriate supports. All students have to see successes from the very first day they start school to the day that we hand them that diploma. Failure cannot be an option. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We want to thank everyone for their participation, those who are with us via Facebook, or those who submitted questions, and those who are seeking to serve on the Jefferson County Board of Education. We especially want to thank Ms. Jamila Fleet, who made this forum possible. She is the president and CEO of Innovative Solution Technology. And because of their service, we are able to sponsor this forum, and we were able to sponsor the forums on Tuesday night and Wednesday night. So will the candidates please join me in thanking Ms. Fleet for making this possible?
Thank you.
Very, very much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
we
guys.
thank everyone for tuning in. And of course, our very capable and dedicated moderator, Ms. Ringo. I'm not sure if I can say this in this platform, but we love you and we thank you for your dedicated service, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you. Have a blessed evening.
Luck to everyone.
Thanks.
Night all.
I
Bye.